Oh,
All right. Can you hear me okay?
yeah.
Excellent. Good afternoon. Yeah, it was actually Heidi who met us at World of Concrete this past year. And she had a chance to see some of this stuff in action. So we had a great chat and, really excited to have the opportunity to be here today to talk about construction robotics and the mule and our technology. So you guys see the screen okay? Everything good on
Looks
that side?
good.
All right, excellent. So again, I'm Scott Peters. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Construction Robotics, and we've been really revolutionizing the construction industry for a number of years now. Primarily focused in masonry, so a lot of what I'll talk about today is in the masonry space, but we've got some exciting new things happening, really starting to expand into some other new trades, and we see a lot of opportunity for the core technology that we've developed and are bringing to the industry, and so really welcome thoughts and feedback around where we could continue to expand the use of this. So today, I'll cover what we do in masonry as well as just the core technology that we have and then some of the areas that we're starting to get into. So there we go. So, like I've said, we've been in the industry for a number of years. Our first product was actually a brick lane robot called Sam, which picked bricks and applied mortar, installed them in walls, and that product was out there for a number of years. Originally launched in 2014, had it out there for a number of years, and in 2018 we shifted to this mule smart lifting technology, and that's kind of become the core products for us. And I'll talk a little bit about it. But we've been on projects all over the country and even internationally, Australia, the Middle East, and worked with some large general contractors and worked on some pretty huge projects, really around the country. So, a lot of experience with originally with Sam, and then now mostly with the Mule technology and smart lifting, which I'll get into. And the main problem that we're trying to solve is probably the same problem that the industry's been facing and many contractors struggle with on a daily basis, which is kind of this productivity challenge, the lack of labor coming into the trades, the productivity challenges that we as an industry face, the gap between maybe what construction sees and what the rest of the world, where they've seen increases in productivity and construction really has not, right? So manufacturing, agriculture, seen big gains in productivity over the last number of years. Construction, I think, is a little bit of a laggard in that regard. So I think we see opportunity in this space to leverage technology to change the way that technology interacts with workers. And that's going to be the thing that we think will change this and have a bigger impact in construction from an overall productivity and economic perspective, right? We hear it in masonry, and I'm less familiar in some of the other trades, but I know in masonry specifically, just finding workers, retaining workers, there's challenges with turnover, there's challenges with keeping people in the trades. The average age of a mason is in the 50s. So when you're dealing with the trades that are aging, it takes a toll on your body when you're out there doing physically demanding work every single day. And I would say that's the case with pretty much all trades. Definitely with masonry, definitely with roofing, and I'm sure a lot of others. So our technology is really aimed at that. So our main product right now is the Mule, Material Unit Lift Enhancer. It is an acronym. And the idea is it's a smart lift assist device that makes heavy objects feel weightless. So the whole concept here is that we use technology that works seamlessly with the worker so that when you come down and pick a block or whatever you're picking, and we'll talk about some other materials that we pick, the technology senses that weight and then floats it. And so when you move it up, when you move it down, when you move it sideways, it just feels weightless. And I have some videos on here that I will show. We'll see if they come through. I know sometimes it can be a little
Okay.
jumpy on a web meeting, but I'll do my best. Um, and there are some links if we share this, there's some links that that are on there, and you can find a lot of videos on our YouTube page and on our website. So the main benefits that come from the smart lifting technology really are, like we talked about, the workforce. So we've seen in many instances, it's great for attracting new people into the trade. Goes to a ton of high school student shows to show off the technology to bring people into masonry. And then we've seen a lot of people that have extended careers, and we have case study after case study of people that have come out of retirement or gone back to work after a couple shoulder surgeries, or gone on to a job that maybe they haven't laid heavy materials in a lot of years, and now they're doing it with the mule. So from a workforce perspective, it's hugely impactful and dynamic. Ergonomics, eliminating fatigue and physical wear. Typically masons aren't laying at the same pace on Friday at after lunch as they are on a Monday morning. And so this kind of levels that playing field, not only with just wear and tear throughout the week and on a certain job, but even with the different, physical capabilities of different workers. Whether you've got the big X lineman or whether you've got the small 22-year-old kid, they can lay at the same pace now because of this technology. And then that really all ties back to productivity, right? How do you pay for technology like this? You got to see some productivity gains. And so I'll talk more about how we get to those productivity gains, and what that looks like. And then ultimately that leads to strong ROI for an investment in equipment like this. So this is the mule in action, and you can see here that this is our first, what's in the picture right now is our first generation mule, and we have two versions of the mule, and I'll explain that next. But you can see as he swings that block around, and that's about an 80-pound block, that block is weightless. So the arm sits on the scaffold with him, he grabs that block, and that is a double block. I'll talk more about that. Does that block floats to the wall? It is weightless. So no strain on his body, and he's putting two blocks in the wall with every motion of the wall. So today we have the MZ100 and the ML150. Those are the names of our two products, our two core products. The ML150 was the first product that was out. It's powered by 110, has an air compressor on board. So we have pneumatic grippers and a number of other applications that'll handle up to 150 pounds. And now that is expandable up to about 200 pounds. So this core technology is for lighter weight materials, but it is scalable. And we are looking at being able to do up to 1,000 pounds or more with this technology. And so, I'll touch on a little more of that later. And then the MZ100 is a new product that just launched last year that's entirely battery powered, lithium ion battery powered. It'll operate about 30 hours to a charge, and it charges up in about 4 hours. So they both have about a 12-foot arm, which means that they'll operate in about a 24-foot radius or diameter, excuse me, circle. You can work them in a circle. You can pick in one spot, move it to the other. And the machine itself weighs about 800 pounds for the MZ, 1,100 pounds for the ML. And then those are kind of the core arms. And then I'll explain kind of what goes beneath it and what we attach to and how you get them around the job site and stuff like that as we go along here. The ML150 is really has a lot of different flexible gripper options. It has the vacuum gripper options available, as well as other air compressor kind of type attachments. The MZ100 is entirely battery powered. It's got a three-arm design, so it fits into tighter, smaller spaces, and so it's great for some of the interior stuff. And really flexible from that standpoint. We also have now we now have IoT on board with the MZ100, which means we're getting real-time productivity data from the field, and we can use that to inform downtimes. We can use that to inform productivity changes and ways to enhance and change their job site to have stronger gains. And then we also have a pretty innovative belt in there, so it's not a standard wire rope. It's actually a belt that has power data running through the belt. And so that really streamlines the overall operation and allows you to have up to about 20 feet of vertical travel in one shot. The ML150 does about 11 feet of vertical travel. So I've got a number of pictures, we'll talk about kind of the MZ100 in the field, or really the mules in the field, just to give you some perspective of how they operate out there. The MZ100 here, you can see there's different ground setups. So what you see in the top left is kind of our standard ground setups, where we've got a ground base and you have masts, and you can stack masts on top of each other and freestand it up to 20 feet in the air. We also mount it to scaffold in many cases. So in the bottom right, you'll see it set right up on a mast climbing work platform. And then in the lower left, it's mounted right to the mast of the climbing platform, mast climbing platform. So there's a lot of different versatility. So we think our core, really, you think of our core technology as the arm, and then we have grippers that are very flexible, dynamic, and we can always do custom grippers to pick anything you want. And then we have bases for attaching it and moving it in many different cases. And I'll show you a lot more of that mobility stuff as we go along. This is an amazing case study here. And so I won't play it right now. If we have time at the end, I'd be happy to play this one, but it's also on YouTube. And there's some really amazing things about this case study. So this is Myron, a general contractor who owns 20 mules up in Wisconsin, and they basically had virtually no workers' comp injuries on the masonry crew once they've implemented this technology, which is a huge game changer for them. And they implemented this oversized block, which I'll talk about in a minute. And the comments from these guys about, just how easy it was to use, how quick it was to learn. Dwayne there in the middle talked about how he had a second shoulder surgery, wasn't laying block anymore, and was able to come out of essentially retirement to come lay block with the mules. And they were able to achieve and beat schedule on one of the biggest schools built in Wisconsin, here on this project. So it's a great case study. Feel free to check it out, or if we have time at the end, I could try to pull it up. And then there's a couple other case studies. You can scan these with your phone if you wanted, but if you look, there's a couple case studies of what these customers talk about, from health and safety, productivity benefits, stuff like that. And this one here, I think, is just another quick view of kind of the mule in action. And you can see how his hand is on that block. You can push on the handle, you can push on the block, you can kind of float it around, spin it around, whatever makes the most sense. In that case, they're coming up over rebar. So that's a great place where you're going to save your shoulders and your back and your body, is coming up over that rebar. So a lot of different applications there that you can see in action. So just another video of it moving. So now that we've developed this core technology that makes things weightless, right? The real question is, how do you get the productivity gains, or how do you best leverage this technology? And so from our perspective, one of the things that we worked pretty heavily on was really relooking at the materials that we install within masonry. So we use it for a lot of stone veneer. We use it for a lot of different materials, but one of the most common in the masonry space is this regular gray block, right? 8/8/16s, which is about 35 pounds. And 35 pounds, masons will lift that one-handed all day long. And they're tough. They don't need something to help them. But when you add that up over the course of 100, 200, 300 units in a day, it starts to take a toll. And so we worked with manufacturers to start to ask the question, if our mule can handle 100 pounds on the MZ100 or 150 up to 200 pounds on the ML150, why can't we explore larger materials for certain types of projects? So we worked with the manufacturers. They were able to produce a double block. And now with every motion of the wall, you're doubling your productivity. And so it allows you to rethink your job site and rethink how you install material, because you're essentially, putting less labor costs in each unit that's getting installed. So going to larger format, which is, I think not an uncommon direction for the overall industry to go, is to look at, prefabrication or larger unit sizes and stuff like that. So again, if you envision laying 120 units of regular 8/8/16s and you put 120 units of 8/8/32s, you're doubling your square footage in the wall. Same thing on the 12-inch block. So they now have 8/32s, they have 12/32s, there's 10/32s. And so as we've worked with manufacturers, there's a whole bunch of places that have started to come out with them over the last couple of years, and that's continuing to increase pretty dramatically, where those have become available. And we've got some, great case studies and results with it, and it's a pretty big game changer. So what else can the mule handle? So we have a number of applications within masonry that we focused on. And again, as a smaller company, we've kind of focused in the masonry industry, but I'll talk a little bit more, in a couple slides about areas where we see expansion and growth. But we've done retaining wall projects. We've laid a lot of stone veneers. We've developed custom grippers for, special interior block where you're lifting with a pin, your standard CMU stuff. We've actually done form panels for concrete work. Where we've done that custom. We've developed other custom grippers for special block. And then we've done vacuum grippers, and we've actually used mules in refractory settings using vacuum grippers to pick refractory brick. And then standard, we have a modular gripper too that'll really grip just about anything mechanically. And then vacuum grippers that, can do quite a bit as well. So a lot of different gripper options, but we like the challenge of, hey, what do you want to pick? We'll find a way to pick it. We actually have a hook now even available that you can put a hook on this thing and just sling something. So we've seen people, general contractors that have even picked pipes, and picked a pipe and set it down in the hole, where maybe it's awkward to do, or, you're trying to do it fairly quickly. You can do something like that, where the mule can help you assist with that. Some other pictures of the mule in the field. We've got, these different masts and bases that attach to the decks. And now, there's even rail systems that are coming out. I'll show a little bit of that, I think, in there in a second. We've had people use them on trailers. We had wheelbases where you can actually put wheels underneath it and wheel it around inside a job, or in the field. That's a good SRW application. And then this is a nice mobility integration. So one of the part companies we partner closely with is JLG. They obviously produce a lot of scissors and booms. And so we partnered with them to develop a attachment for their RT scissor lifts. So their 3394s, where you can actually mount a mule, either the MZ or the ML, to an RT scissor lift. And in that case, you can elevate it about 33 feet in the air and operate it wherever you want, quickly lower it down, move it to the next area, elevate it back up. And it is approved by the manufacturer. And then we also have a mobile base, track base that we've integrated with that's a little tracked pallet forklift. So that's another example. And then, other mast attachments, doing stair towers. We partner with a lot of the different mast climbing manufacturers. So Easy Scaffold is one of them, Hydromobile is one of them. So in the masonry space, those are some of the manufacturers we partner with. But again, it's about getting our technology into more and more places, right? So this is another rail system integration we did with Easy Scaffold, where instead of statically mounting mules on the scaffold, they actually built a rail system where the mule sits on the rail, and then it could cover up to 40 or 60 feet in one shot. So it stretches across that scaffold, to cover, these different jobs in different areas, and make it a little more flexible and dynamic for the masonry job sites. So mass climbing setups, ground setups, mobile setups really are pretty standard for us. That's a little bit of the bread and butter. And then rail systems are fairly new. We've operated off forklifts, and then scissor lifts are starting to become more prevalent. And then we work on, stair towers, long walls, tall walls. The data, so just touch on the data for a second. So one of the interesting things about the data is now that we can start to capture the data real time in the field, we not only get data to help us with serviceability and troubleshooting the mules and help people get through issues really quickly, which is really valuable for them, but we can capture the productivity data. And when you look at it over the course of a day, we can analyze their job and say, hey, this is when the first block went in the wall. This is where your downtime was. This is how much downtime you were. This is how much productive time you actually had in a
What's
day.
that?
And so,
Yeah, you're fine.
so,
Sorry,
so,
muted
uh,
it.
no, that's okay. So I didn't know there was a question there. So, with the productivity data, one thing that's really cool is that as we analyze the downtime, we were on a job over in Dubai, actually working with a contractor over there, and they started, and they were 50 block a day, I think was what they were achieving. We put the mule in there, worked with them over a few days, got the team comfortable with it, and then quickly showed them the data and where all the downtime was, right? So the amount of time they were actually utilizing the piece of equipment, and it became very obvious very quickly that there was a huge amount of opportunity to increase utilization of that equipment. So we worked very closely with them to change their workflow and change their process and change their mindset so they prep other areas and they could keep the mule quickly moving from point A to point B, and then keep it installing block. And so then they were able to consistently achieve 300 to 400 block a day with that mule. So, big productivity gains when you really start to look at this type of stuff. And I think in construction, there's not a lot of historical great ways for capturing productivity data other than looking at the wall or looking at the roof or looking at how much did I get done or how much material did I install. And so the more that our equipment and our machines can help us with that data and it becomes prevalent, it lets us really relook at how we execute on jobs and then identify what we need to do to increase the productivity, the utilization of the equipment, the utilization of the people, and overall productivity. So, for us, masonry has been a great space to be in. It's a trade that I think really benefits heavily from a technology like ours, where we can improve health and safety. We can help improve productivity, huge gains there. But we're starting to expand into some other trades, which is really fun. And so I'll introduce just a couple of them here, and then open up for questions, and happy to show some other case study videos if that's helpful. But new market opportunities. So one of the areas that we've started to expand into is actually solar, so lifting solar panels. So we have a vacuum gripper now that's available where we can and we've operated it on or kind of integrated into skid steers, and now we have a new mobile base that I'll show you that's come out where we can have the mobility of the mule and pick and move these panels. So you pick a panel, we can now rotate the panel, slide it into place, and set it, and take a crew. And I think in this case they had a crew of two people that were putting about 1,000 panels down in a day was I think their peak rate. And we also so now that what used to be a two-man operation to pick a panel and set a panel really has kind of become one person who can pick it, and then there's someone who's going to set and then help basically install the hardware and support that. So again, it's about amplifying the crew and helping them be more efficient, safer, and more effective out there. And then this is actually what it looks like today. So we have the mule, we have this new remote control base that we can integrate with, and there's other options for basically integrating into other skid steer like equipment. But you can kind of see I'll quickly roll through this one, but you can kind of see come in, pick the panel, float it to the area, and then in this case he's actually able to set this independently because of the way the panel configurations are and the way they hang up there. So once he kind of goes in, he hangs it, hits a button, releases it. And there's safety features built into the mule. So it won't release it, whether it's vacuum or mechanical. It won't release it until it knows that all the weight is gone. So one of the core things about our technology is it has those smarts built in where we can make things inherently safe. We can implement moments of autonomy. So we can actually automatically raise or lower the product in certain instances. So in the case of like a block, after we set the block, the mule can actually get up out of your way. In other instances, after they pick a panel here, if they want to raise it a certain distance and don't want to even lift it, they can hit a button and we can automatically raise it. So we can integrate these moments of autonomy into it in a way that is not where the technology is not overbearing, right? It's not so complicated where you have to learn it or it's at high risk of maintenance or failure. It's a fairly straightforward technology implemented very simply where these guys learn this thing in a matter of probably an hour of the mule showing up on the job site. They were learning it. I think this was literally the first day that they used it on the job. And so these guys are still getting used to it. But after an hour or two of running, they get it, right? They understand, oh, this is what I got to do. This is how I hit the button to grab it. I rotate it, I float the panel. And because they can put their hands on the panel, on the thing, they're not driving controls. The learning curve is significantly lower. The availability for this technology to be utilized by more people is much, much greater. So that's a really fun and exciting application for us, looking at solar panels, looking at other areas where vacuum, maybe glass handling and stuff like that can have an impact. And you can see a couple other pictures there of where we're eventually going, where you can integrate it into scissor stacks, or we have carts that can carry the materials right alongside it. So I think yeah, a lot of this is pretty much the same, just picking and setting panels. Um, but you could see he's putting a panel in probably every 40 seconds, 30, 40 seconds. And so now the challenge isn't necessarily that they have to get panels in faster. It's about how do you make sure that you're installing panels the maximum number of hours a day. And the benefit is that you're not going to get burnt out because that panel is essentially weightless. So you can sustainably do that throughout the day. It's a matter of how do you optimize the job site to take advantage of this technology. Um, and and then also, similar technology where the mobility and the mule can work with SRWs. So we've done some really nice demonstrations with SRWs and picking heavy materials there. And then Equipter. So actually, a lot of this really collaboration came from Equipter, which is a name that I'm sure everyone is familiar with in the industry and in the roofing industry. And so Equipter was a company that we found a while back where we were looking for more and more mobility integrations. We found Equipter, loved what they had, loved what they do, and so we really collaborated with them and partnered with them as a potential another mobility option for us. They're great to work with, and so that was actually I think how we got introduced to Heidi originally, and she came over and spent some time with us. But we showed this off at World of Concrete last year, and what you see there in the background, I'll show you another picture, but what you see there in the background is the mule mounted to an Equipter, and it's great for demonstrations. We tow it around, we pull up to a job, literally drive it up to the wall, extend it, and then we're ready to go. And now that we kind of make that available as we start to enter more like residential markets and smaller masonry contractors, it enables them to just have less mules. They don't need 10 mules on a job. They might need one mule, and now they can easily move it around and get it where they need to do the foundation work or do the block work. And it starts to open up some ideas about other areas where we can utilize mules. So really great collaboration with them. We are on we do have this unit kind of out there running around, right now doing demos, and then we've also explored further collaborations with them on even smaller units where we could do some interior stuff. And again, it's about putting the mule in a place where it's really easy to get around the job, really easy to set up, take it right off your trailer, or just pull your trailer up to the job, drive it to where you want, and then you're good to go. And then this kind of shows you, the movement process of, hey, we just finished this section of wall and now we got to move it. And in a matter of, just a couple minutes, you guys all, I'm sure, are familiar how the equipter kind of sets up and moves. But for us, you kind of lower it down, and then, he'll go ahead and jump on it. With the mule there, just drive right over to this other section, where, right over here, boom, put the outriggers down, and then he hits the button to raise it up. And once it's elevated, then the mule is ready to lay again. You can see he just kind of holds on to as it elevates, he just kind of holds on to the gripper, and it senses that basically it's, that you're pulling on it and allows you to extend. And then at that point, he's ready to go grab his next block and start putting it in the wall. So, that's kind of the overall summary of masonry. We've got a million different job site pictures and videos I'd be happy to show or answer any questions. But I think as we look to expand beyond just masonry, as we get into solar, as we get into SRW, as we add more mobility to it, we definitely look for and welcome collaboration with companies, or I think looking for different ways to utilize this technology and how it can help. In the core technology, we can think about it this way, right? We can make up to 200 pounds today weightless, eventually more. What do you want to lift? And the ideal applications where we've seen the greatest value is where precision really mattered, right? So if you want to finely place something and you don't want to have somebody, driving controls on a, far away while somebody else is kind of leaning on, straps or whatever. If you want a single person application where that precision matters, that's an area, or speed. Those are two high value where you want to move very quickly. So the mule itself, the speed of the lifting motion is significantly faster than any type of hoist that you can find out there, just off the shelf. So it's a different technology than, say, traditional hoists. And so, the applications that are the greatest are precision and speed, where those things are of the greatest value. And then, where the material value is high, or the cost highs, or you need that precision placement, there's a ton of value there too. But if you're moving a lot of something all day long, the mule technology can help. If you need to finally place something in the wall or in your building, then the mule can help as well. So that's kind of the overview of construction robotics and the mule. Again, happy to share some more stuff, but would love to open it up for Q&A, see if people have questions, and yeah, see if there's anything
Oh,
else.
yeah. I'm sure there's going to be questions. And if you do have a question, maybe you could just tell Scott who you are and where you're from. And let's take those questions. I love the collaboration with Equipter. I've got lots of questions, but I want you all to go first.
I don't know how to raise my hand or if there's people in line to ask questions.
Go ahead, Jill.
All right. Hi, Scott. Nice to meet you.
Nice to
I
meet
am Jill Bloom. I'm the group publisher of Roofing Contractor, but also I oversee building enclosure and walls and ceilings. Do you also have a capability for like exterior wall systems or even drywall interior wise?
Yeah, so yes, we can pick a lot of different things. We've definitely done some exterior wall systems to some degree. I would say, that's a little bit of a newer market for us, and I think we're definitely open to looking at it. Drywall, we've looked pretty extensively at, and we've even done some trials with. And so there are certain instances where drywall, we could do stuff with drywall, using similar vacuum type grippers. But I would say that's still a new exploratory market for us that we'd love to dig into a little bit further. Because again, that's something where you got high repetition. You're doing a lot of stuff, a lot of something all day long. So,
Yeah, awesome. Well done. This is really cool. Thanks for sharing.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks. David, I see your hand up.
Hi, I'm David. I'm starting up a new company called Roofer Robotics, and the idea is that we're going to put roof robots on top of flat top commercial roofs, install things like screws and plates. But my question is, in the early stages of your company, what ways were customers reluctant to adopt your technology, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, great question. Actually, so our first product was Sam, which was the Brick Lane robot. There was a book about it. Johnny Waldman wrote a book about Sam. Feel free to check it out. Talks a lot about the challenges and struggles in the early days. And you can reach out to me. My contact information is there. I'd be happy to connect. But, I think that for us, our core technology, whether it was Sam, whether it's the Mule, we've always believed in supporting the trades and extending, really developing technology that's an extension of them. And so, we've seen varying levels of attitude towards robotics and technology. You see people that are like, great, I can't find any workers, or I want to get rid of all my workers, and so give me all the robots I can have. You get other people that, they are super against technology, and then you get a lot of the people in the trades that, feel threatened by it. And so we spend a lot of time, working with the unions, working with the different trades, the training centers, stuff like that, to educate them about how this technology is going to impact them. And we talk a lot about how what we envision for where robotics will fit into the space isn't necessarily like, it's not like robots show up and people go away. It's that the skill set of the people out there is going to change a little bit. And hopefully the robots are picking up some of the dull, dirty, dangerous work, right? I mean, you know this. And so that's really the goal. So yeah, I think engaging the workforce is a critical piece, because no matter how much the owners want it, if the guys in the field won't use it, you're dead in the water. So you got to get buy-in across all levels. The people in the field need to feel comfortable with the technology and understand it's there to benefit them. The foreman, it needs to make their job easier. The setup, the implementation has got to be really easy, and the foremen really need to, the people running the projects, it needs to not be a headache for them. And then the owners have got to see ROI and benefits. So that's the way we look at it. And I'm sure you'll kind of find your own way, but we love connecting with robotics companies and help to share in any way we can. So feel free to reach out, but, wish you best of luck. I think there's great opportunity in the space where, when robotics are done right, it can have a huge positive impact.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
There are questions? Okay, so any ideas, thoughts on how this could be useful on a roof? What's a bundle of shingles weigh? Does anyone know off the top of their head? Come on, I know there's some contractors on here. Because right now, your crews are climbing a ladder with the shingle bundle slung over their shoulder, right? I mean, could one of these on an equipter get those shingles on the
Figure
roof?
about 70 pounds, Karen.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, for one bundle. And I know I've seen people carrying two. So yeah, I'm curious though too, how does it, so say it's up on a commercial roof, right? I don't, what's a roll, and Greg, maybe you know this too. I know I've heard the term a roll of single ply membrane, 400 or 500 pounds.
Oh yeah, there's no way you're carrying that.
Right. But moving it around a roof, maybe, because you said right now, Scott, it's up to 200 pounds that it can lift. How do you get to those big rolls of membrane that are 500-600 pounds and being able to shift them around the job site?
Yeah, for us, actually, the core technology, we can get to 1,000 pounds plus. When you start to get over 1,000 pounds, the dynamics of pushing a material around is a little bit differently. But if you've got 1,000 pound whatever, we can implement technology that can float it if there's value in doing that. But I think the real question that we often ask and dig into, especially when we're looking at a new market, is what does the form factor need to look like? Because when you think about our technology, there's kind of two pieces. There's the arm, which you see it has a certain length and it has it has functionality, and there's a gripper. But then there's like the core technology, which is sensing the weight and then floating the weight. And so the sensing and the floating of the weight, that can be applied in many different form factors. It doesn't necessarily need to be an arm statically mounted. We could look at adding it to the end of a boom lift. We can make it smaller and more portable with a shorter reach. There's a lot of different ways. It could be on a gantry system. It could be on an I-beam. There's a lot of different ways we can deploy the technology. But again, the core thing is we float it up and down, and then because of the jib arm, we're able to float it horizontally. So, we can do more weight, but it's a matter of discussing or brainstorming or understanding the problem to know what that form factor needs to look like. So when you think about, a problem when you're out there on a job site and you're looking at it, that's really the big question is what does that form factor need to look like? It's got to be under some certain weight because it's got to be, on a rooftop and there's weight limitations, or it has to, be easily able to be set on the roof and taken off the roof, and it has to have this amount of reach because of XYZ. So once we understand those things, then we can kind of better frame out how our technology can be applied and what it would take to solve those applications.
All right. Other questions for Scott? Speak up if you don't know how to raise your hand. Excellent. Okay. Wow, Scott, I want to thank you so much for being here today. I want to challenge our folks on this call and anyone that's watching this afterward to think about the things that you're doing on a roof and think about how this might be able to solve your problem, and then reach out to Scott and say, hey, what if you could do this? Or could you do this? And, who knows, in a couple of years from now, we may see Scott and his team at the International Roofing Expo demonstrating what this can do on a roof and how it can prevent injuries and keep workers safer. I think it's fantastic. Thank you so much, Scott, for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it, and definitely welcome anybody. If you have ideas, if you want to kick some things around, please feel free to reach out. My contact information is there, we love a good challenge and think that our technology can apply many different areas across the industry. So look forward to the conversation. Thank you so much.
Excellent.